I swear, I spent so much time writing all these exercises and demonstrating all of them that it's like a Bible or I don't know, a scientific studies or a thesis on the subject. It's crazy the amount of time that I've spent doing this. So I hope it's going to be useful for you guys. I really do. Hello fellow followers, drummers and music lovers, welcome to this video where I am going to introduce my new full drum course. So I've been working a lot since my audition for an extreme metal band, an audition that I failed. So yeah, the last few months I've been working a lot and my obsession was how can you play faster blast beat without really improving your hands technique? You have an idea? Well, check this out. So yeah, of course, I am talking about the switching hand blast beat and the gravity blast that you have seen me doing a lot for this audition, right? So some think that these techniques are for the lazy drummer. The drummer that don't want to spend too much time learning wrist motion, open, close, push, pull to play really fast. Or some people also think that these techniques are kind of cheating or anyway not really interesting. Well, let me tell you several things. First of all, let's say your maximum tempo is around 220 BPM. And you want to play 280 BPM. Faster! Well, maybe you can use one of these two techniques because you have a limited amount of time to practice and you really want to practice other things behind the drum kit. You don't want to be super focused on just being able to play faster with your hands. And so you could totally spend a lot of time working on your groove, for example, and you still need some fast blast beat here and there. And so why not using a switching hand blast beat or a gravity blast? So this is one thing that is interesting with this technique. Then let's say you can play super fast. I can play 300 BPM traditional blast beats with my open close motion. I can even play 320 BPM blast beat like that. But still, at some point, I might need to play even faster than that. And in order to achieve that, I need switching hand blast beat or gravity blast. So even if you're really fast with your hands, at some point, this technique can be extremely useful, right? But wait a minute. Germany, is this just about being able to play faster and faster? No, absolutely not. And the thing with switching hand blast beat and gravity blast is that you can be extremely creative even when you don't play super fast. And in my full drum course, I really wanted also to show you how creative you can be with this technique. And at some point, what you play behind the drum kit using the switching hand blast beat or the gravity blast, it's not beats anymore, it's kind of feels. So you can even create insane feels using switching hand blast beats pattern, for example. And so these techniques are very interesting, even if you're not playing extreme metal. So if you purchase this full course, what will you get? First of all, it's a PDF file of around 80 pages, all right? In this PDF, I kind of summarize everything that I am saying in the video. So it's kind of an abstract. So after you have watched all the video, you can access to the most important point in the PDF, and you also have all the notations in the PDF. And the PDF is actually listing all the videos of the full drum course, because you have more than 20 videos, and each video is on average 20 minutes long. So the total amount of time of lesson in video that you have in this full drum course is between 7 and 8 hours. It's kind of very long, and I spent so many time doing all the exercises that, to be honest, at the moment, I've stopped counting when I was at 7 hours, and I still did a little bit more. So it's between 7 and 8 hours of content that you will have, with plenty of demonstration, all the notation, a lot of advices to reach your goals also. So I really have thrown all my knowledge of the switching hand blast beat and the gravity blast inside this full drum course, and I have really tried a lot of different ideas so we can be extremely creative using this technique. So it's around 100 different exercises that you will get with this full drum course. It's really a 2-in-1 full drum course, because you have a whole part on the switching hand blast beat and another part on the gravity blast. So it's enough talking now, and you know what? I'm going to give you some free extracts so you know then how this full drum course is. I hope you will like it, and it's going to be of great support for you guys. So I leave you with the free extract, and until next time, take care, have fun behind the drum kit. Cheers! So now that we have reviewed the basic stickings of drumming, we are going to talk about the stickings that we will use for switching hand blast beat. And every time they are just kind of an adaptation of this sticking. And basically, with all the switching hand blast beat pattern, you are going to play an accent on the cymbal on the first beat and on the third beat, considering we are doing 8-note roll. So with a bomb blast, you are basically playing a cymbal on every beat. You're playing quarter notes. And with the switching hand, it's going to be possible to do only the first beat and the third beat. So we will review also and learn some different kind of accentuation later on, but the basic switching hand pattern, it is just that. So the simpler approach with sticking, considering you want to do a switching hand blast beat, is going to be a quadruple stroke roll with accent on the first and the third beat. So So 4 strokes on the snare, and then you move for a 5th one on the cymbal, and when your hand is playing the cymbal, so the 5th strokes it is playing, the other hand is going to play its first stroke on the snare, and it's going for 4 strokes on the snare before moving to a cymbal for a 5th stroke, right? So this simple approach is really great because in terms of hands coordination, it's kind of super easy. In terms of dynamic, if you cannot reach a completely flat dynamic, which is what you want to achieve with blast beats, the dynamic is going to be taka 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 taka. So that inherent groove to this sticking is still matching the very straightforward feeling that you want with death metal. So that is also a good point. If you fail to maintain flat dynamic, it's not going to be groovy in a bad way. Okay, but now you have some disadvantage to this technique. First of all, it's very demanding on hand technique because you play 5 strokes per hand, and it's sometimes hard to move around the drum kit because for the 5th one, you are already tense kind of a lot because it is the last stroke that you play, and you need to move really quickly to a cymbal. So if you want to reach cymbals that are far away, it might be difficult. Of course, when you play 4 strokes in a row, you use your wrist, your fingers, you use the rebound, and for the 5th one, you kind of use your whole arm to move. So it is still doable, but in my opinion, it is definitely not the most efficient technique. And this is why we are going to review and learn several stickings, because all stickings have some advantage and disadvantage.
It's all the time about how hard it is with hand coordination, how the dynamic of the sticking is it easy to move around the drum kit with this sticking? Is it demanding on hand technique? That's the kind of thing you want to consider when you choose a sticking. So that was sticking A. Now let's go for sticking B, which is, in my opinion, the best one. It's very efficient and really easy to move around the drum kit. And we are going to use Paradis, except that on the first beat and the third beat we play both hands at unison. So okay, so the sticking is right and left at unison, then left, right, right, right and left at unison, right, left, left, and that is one bar. With this sticking, you play only 4 strokes per hand maximum, and you have one hand doing the burst, this hand can have some rest, and then the other hand is doing the burst, so it's very efficient for hand technique. You have plenty of time to move around the drum kit. So that is great too. Now, this sticking is very hard with hand coordination, and it does take a lot of time, so the sticking becomes instinctive. So you really need to spend time to work on the sticking on the practice pad until it's really done by instinct. But then it's super, super efficient. You just need to get the coordination between your hands. Very cool. And now the dynamic of this one can be also a disadvantage, depending what you want. It can be very groovy. You have the so depending the musicality you want to achieve, it is great. But if you want to reach a perfectly flat dynamic, this sticking can be a little bit tricky towards dynamic, and this switching hand blast beat definitely have an inherent groove to it, so you like it or you don't. But in my opinion, then exercise 1C is going to be about having the switching hand blast beat pattern on the hand during 4 bars, and then during 4 bars more, you are going to bring the bass drum playing 8-note roll, single stroke roll, so right, left, right, left, right, left.
So the issue with the switching hand blast beat pattern is that it is an 8-note roll based pattern. So when you play this from, I don't know, 220 BPM and up to 270 BPM, it doesn't feel that fast. So now we are playing a 16th note roll based pattern. So it's gonna feel definitely faster at this tempo. And so if you want to play 16th note roll blast beat at this tempo, but you don't have the hand technique, you can instead work on your coordination and play the switching hand blast beat with the bass drumming between the snare, and it's definitely gonna feel faster.
Alright, so that was it for chapter 2. Now what you need to do is just to play more bars with the switching hand blast beat pattern and go for 16 bars, maybe 30 seconds, 1 minute, 1 minute, 30 seconds of switching hand blast beat. So you definitely develop your switching hand blast beat skills and also push the tempo. As I've said already, in my opinion, the limit is probably around 380 BPM, then it's better to use a gravity blast that we are going to see in chapter 3. Anyway, that was it for the switching hand blast beat. Now let's go to the gravity blast in chapter 3.
Right now, this is a very general introduction to the one-handed roll or free-hand technique and the gravity blast. So what are all these things? So the gravity blast, this is a one-handed roll, so meaning you play a fast roll with just one hand on the snare. And this is at unison with the same note rate being played at the double bass. So you have two rolls going on at unison. The double bass using both feet and the snare using just one hand. And then with the other hand, you're going to play some accent on the cymbal. All right, this is a gravity blast. Little demonstration really quickly. This is a one-handed roll. So the question is, what is going on here? Well, first of all, what kind of grip are you using on the stick? You are using the grip you would do, or almost, I would say, for a buzz roll. I mean, this is what I do, in fact. So I'm going to play a buzz roll. And when I'm doing this buzz roll, I have a particular grip on the drumstick, which is kind of using my fingers to do kind of a spring effect. So I'm using, of course, here, I am, of course, using here double strokes, and I'm going down with the stick, having one stroke, and then my fingers are pressing back up the drumstick at the back end of it. So when I go up, then I have a second strokes basically going on. The rebound is instantly killed by the spring effect of my fingers pushing back up the drumstick at the back end, right? This is exactly what is going on when I am doing the freehand technique with the grip that I am using. I am using my fingers, the middle finger and the ring finger especially, to push back up the drumstick at the back end, so the front end is going down again. So I'm going to demonstrate very slowly what is going on during a free hand technique roll. So you have one stroke where you just go down like that, you hit the snare drum and the ring almost at the same time. And so you have the stick going up here. And then you're gonna raise your hand again. And because your fingers are doing this kind of spring effects, they are gonna press the drumstick back up at the back end. So the front end is gonna go down. Another thing that can help you is to take a used drum head and cut just the hoop, so you get rid of the plastic film and you have this hoop. So let's say then you change your snare drum head. So you remove the rim, the drum head, you put the new drum head on top, and then you put this hoop there before the rim of the snare drum, and this will make the rim here a little bit higher. So this thingy, you can take it out of a bottom snare drum head, a side snare drum head, because they are a little bit thinner. If they are too thick, it's going to make the whole process a little bit too tricky, all right? So by doing like that, you have your rim a little bit higher, so the pivot effect is going to be stronger. Is it going to make the motion easier? It's going to probably increase the feel you have of the motion. So if you want to learn the motion, it might make things a little bit easier for you. But then I'm doing this because I feel that the gravity blast then is louder. This is making the snare louder with the freehand technique because the pivot effect is increased, and so the motion is a little bit bigger. It's not, in my opinion, making you any faster. I don't feel faster because of this. I just feel the snare is a little bit louder. And it's also very cool for rim shot and cross sticking. So this is why I'm using this trick. Exercise B is going to be a tiny bit more difficult. We are going to do one more note rate. So we are going to start with 8th note roll, then we are going to play triplet, so 12th note roll. Then we go for the 16th and back to 12, 8, 12, 16th. And so you practice this few repetition with your right hand, few repetition with your left hand. Let's go demonstration at 200 BPM. Already, so now let's say you have mastered a little bit your one-handed roll. Well, you want to play your gravity blast, so we are going to work on your hand-feet coordination so we can have the bass drum at unison with your one-handed roll on the snare. And we will also work on some transition because at some point, of course, you want to be able to throw your gravity blast inside some other beats, all right? So we are going to do this in this group of exercises, exercises 2. So you need to pay attention to several things. First of all, pay attention to the posture you have while playing the gravity blast. I already told you that, of course, you will have a lot of tension in your neck and shoulders, and you will have a tendency to go like this while doing your gravity blast. You have seen me do that already. Try to fight it, but in any case, So that's already a lot of practice that we have done and a lot of skills that we have acquired. But now, let's say we want to be more creative with our Gravity Blast. Because then otherwise, sometimes Gravity Blast can be interesting, but also kind of boring. You have just quarter note accent on a cymbal, just a really fast snare at unison with the bass drum. But if you just stay like that, you might be able to use some Gravity Blast in your music, but you probably are missing out on some quite interesting things to do. As we are currently reaching the end of this full drum course, we have seen a lot of different things about the switching hand blast beat and a lot of different things about the Gravity Blast. But there is still the transition between the switching hand blast beat and the Gravity Blast that you can practice a lot. You might think that this technique are not really doable at the same kind of tempo, because for a switching hand blast beat, this is something you would do around 300 BPM up to 360 BPM, maybe even 380 BPM. So meaning around 150 and 190 BPM if we are talking 16ths. And when you are doing a Gravity Blast 16th note roll, it's kind of very efficient once you start around 180, 200, 220. So you don't really have a crossover between these two techniques. But you can still have one playing 24th note roll and the other 32, something like that. So different note rate. And so in the end, you can still have a really good crossover of this technique. So, for example, you could totally have a 200 BPM 16th note roll Gravity Blast, and then you go to a switching hand blast beat, but instead of 16ths, this one is going to be playing 12th note roll, all right? And so that would be like playing 8th note roll, but at 300 BPM. So this is a transition you can do, but you can also do the other way around. So in this video, you will also see me playing at 140 BPM, but I will play a 16th note roll switching hand blast beat. So basically what we have been calling a 280 BPM switching hand blast beat in previous chapters. But now I'm going to set up the metronome at 140 BPM so I can play a switch hand blast beat, which is going to be 16th note roll, all right? And then when I'm going to do my Gravity Blast, I'm going to play triplet, so I'm going to play 24th note roll, all right? So this is the kind of transition that you can do. You can play like 2 bars switching hand, 2 bars Gravity Blast, or you can do 4 bars and 4 bars. And I'm not going to write really this exercise with a notation because I want you to find your own way of going to one bit to another one. There are many ways of doing this. You can just have a full stop with a rim shot on the snare and start the other bits a little bit later with just a little pause in your drumming, or you can have the double bass going on, switching the note rate, and then your hands following a little bit later. Many different kind of transition are possible. The idea is just to jam behind your drum kit around this transition and find your own way through this transition. So let's go for a demonstration now.